huge news on a Monday here in the Hunter Call of the Wild. It appears we've got our first look at all 8 variations for the Great One Pheasants through the concept art. So there's some really cool ones. Let's dive in. So we've got 2 sets of 4 different variants, and we'll just go through all of them first, and then maybe take closer looks at each individual one. So we've got the Garnet, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but a kind of cool grayish black with redder undertones. The Emerald, which is quite self-explanatory and similar in a sense to the Melanistic Pheasants, but a little more green as opposed to the blue. Then we've got the Pearl, which almost has kind of a piebald look to it, and the Morganite, a really kind of rusty reddish coloration all the way through. We've also then got the Citrine, almost a gold color. That one I really like. Sapphire is sick as well, with that blue going all the way down the back and the kind of white rings around the neck. We've got the Ruby, which at least in the concept art is a little more kind of pinkish red. And obviously I'll point this out after we go through the last one, the Obsidian, which at first glance I thought was going to be my favorite. But I'll tell you what, that Citrine grew on me really quickly. But obviously the Obsidian, the black feathers all the way through the head and neck, down there onto the back. And you do see at the bottom there, final in-game models might differ, which I think pretty much clarifies this is the concept art for each of the variations, so they could vary a little bit or even fairly wildly. We've seen in the past other concept arts be pretty different from the final variations, but that is really cool. And just last week after the winter show, I was asking you guys, what do you think a Great One Pheasant means? What are those going to look like? Now we've got at least a pretty decent idea. And I really like what they're going for. Now, something I find interesting, it appears to me this is the same, let's say, like, outline, colored in differently. However, you'll notice on the crest, the Garnet, the Emerald, Morganite, Obsidian, and Sapphire all have like a more pronounced crest. Pearl, Citrine, and Ruby, and Obsidian as well, have a smaller crest. That I found interesting. It seems intentional, and I wonder, is that going to be not a trophy variation, but could you get the Garnet with the bigger crest and the smaller crest? That I don't know, but it's the one obvious detail I see, other than the actual coloration, that stands out between the different variants. And there's just 2 different ones shown there. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there's going to be some level of difference between the different furs, or different plumages I should say, and maybe you can get each one with the different plumages. Pretty cool little detail there, and maybe I'm just reading too far into that, but I found that interesting just looking at them and really trying to dissect for any difference at all. There certainly appears to at least be that. So, bonus coyote down. I was hoping we'd find a pheasant as we go along here. But I want to take a just quick, kind of closer look at each different variation. So, there's a lot of similarities with them, but we'll just start where we began looking in general. The Garnet version, you've got like the gray and black, even a little bit of brown tones throughout the body. All the wing feathers for these pretty much are the same, so there's not a lot to touch on there. And then you've got the white ring around the neck, obviously ringneck pheasant, that's pretty much going to be a standard. And then a little bit of kind of white splotches, sort of like a common pheasant, throughout the wings. The Pearl I thought was interesting because it doesn't have the white ring. It's got like a whole white section on its neck. The rest of it, pretty standard I would say. You've got kind of lighter feathers up around the neck and down into the chest. And then that white patch back towards the tail. And it almost has a fire looking gradient to it, which the Citrine does even better. We'll take a look at that in a second. That I thought was pretty sweet. The Morganite, it's got a molting pheasant look to it in a sense, but that kind of rusty brown coloration, I actually really like that. The more I look at it, the cooler that is. Its tail feathers, by the way, I think are the lightest out of anything they've shown here. The wings do appear to be a little bit lighter here too, and again, I would think the differences in wing feathers and tail feathers and stuff will actually be more pronounced in the final models. If past Great Ones and variations are any indication, we'll see a fairly significant difference there. And then for the first image, the Emerald as well. I already talked about kind of looking like that melanistic. It's got the green all the way through. I think that's going to look really cool. what they've done with feathers for rare ducks and just duck species in general with that kind of sheen they have, I think those green feathers are really going to have it. That should look insane. And then the white all the way through. It's got white down on the breast as well, which I think is cool. And then fairly standard wing and tail feathers as well. So now to the citrine. And I mentioned that fire gradient in the tail. That's what I really love about it. And you can see like on the head feathers, they didn't just kind of color them in a little bit sort of amber yellowish color. There's a gradient there, which I think is meant to look like gold. It really stands out well. Again, that sheen with the feathers, like when the sun hits it right, I think that one right now is my favorite. And by the way, these were posted with a question from Expansive Worlds. Which Great One Pheasant variant is your favorite? Right now, I think that one's the winner for me, and Sapphire is a close second. We already talked about the rings around the neck. I like how they did several there. That blue, though, I think that's going to look amazing. A little bit darker tail feathers, darker wing feathers as well than some of the other ones we've seen. There's a pheasant, by the way. Maybe we can actually get him as we run along. As we do so, the ruby, that one still kind of confuses me why it's kind of more pinkish than red. But I do like the chest feathers on that one. Really, really light colored. You see like the kind of pink out through the tail? Just an awesome looking pheasant. And then finally with the obsidian. There's some gray on the wings that I didn't notice kind of at first glance there. As we try to take this guy down. No problem there with the 16 gauge. That kind of black and gray gradient up on the neck, all the way down through the tail. And since we've got a pheasant on screen here to compare, pretty common wing feathers. It's got like the darker part down to lighter and then sort of a more brown on the longer wing feathers. Pretty similar to everything that we've seen there. And I do think comparing the Great One models, I think the beak looks a little more notable. And again, it's just a drawing, but I think that may be intentional how pronounced the beak is in the drawings. You see that crest way more significant on the Great Ones. And I think the tail feathers too. I think they're going to be a lot more significant. So, this video ended up being longer than I thought. It was just 8 Great One variations to look at with the pheasants, but I'm really impressed with just what they've shown in the concept art here. And as the question was posed from Expansive Worlds, I'll pose to you, which of these 8 variations is your favorite one? And a follow-up. How the heck do you grind for a Great One pheasant? I don't know, but we're going to have to figure it out because those things look awesome. So, just a quick video, wanted to touch on that, take a look at all those. Once again, let me know what your favorite variation is in the comments below. And on that note, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.